Hi everybody. In this video I'm going through the basics of the chop block with long pimples against a loop or just a standard topspin. In this video I'm using my Matsushita Pro Special blade. I'm using the Stiga Destroyer with no sponge on the backhand. What that means is, I guess, is that it's roughly a medium speed blade. There's no sponge underneath, so there's no bouncy sponge, but there's also none of that shock absorbing sponge that some of the slower rubbers, like some of the Dr. Neubauer or Hallmark rubbers, are famous for having that really dead sponge that absorbs all the pace. So what you're getting here is, in this video, is you're seeing basically what happens just when it hits the bat without any really springy sponge or dead sponge. One thing you'll notice straight away is that very few of the blocks that I make, even though some of them I end up hitting very, very close to the net, virtually none of them end up double bouncing. And whether that's a function of the fact that the tables that we use are quite fast, I don't think it's that I'm hitting it especially hard, as you'll see, but there's certainly it's not very easy to get the ball to double bounce on the table. So unless you're using more of a dead sponge or have a grippier table that bites a little bit more, you may not be able to rely on the fact that you'll be able to block a loop and double bounce it dead. It's just not that easy, or at least I found it virtually impossible to do with this fairly standard long pips that are just grippy long pips without anything special. So without much more talking, let's get into the videos. Alright, let's start with the backhand using a front view. You'll see here that if you watch my stroke and my follow through, the actual stroke is very short. The follow through varies. Sometimes I'm going from facing this camera. You'll sometimes see me go a little bit left to right. You'll sometimes see me go a little bit more downwards, and sometimes you'll see me virtually do nothing at all. All of that adds some variation. It also just it's sort of natural depending on where the ball's placed. Sometimes if it's placed further towards the right of the camera, I have to move my bat that way a little bit more, whereas when it's placed more towards the middle of my body, I really don't have to move my bat much. So there's some natural variation coming just from the ball placement. Now that we're going to slow-mo, here's an opportunity just to look in slow motion at it. There's really not a lot of swing. My grip is relaxed and loose to help absorb pace. I'm trying to absorb pace here. You'll see in the side-on view later that sometimes I'm even pulling the bat back. But a lot of the time it's really just holding it easily, gently, and keeping the bat fairly dead, rather than trying to always pull away from the ball. It tends to be more slide down a little bit to get that effect. And now let's just go to the forehand front view. Same thing, just on the forehand. You can see again, not much for swing is required. It's a very, very simple stroke. Those balls there that you can see that are bouncing barely over the net, they're still not bouncing twice on the table, and that's pretty darn short. So I wouldn't be trying to beat somebody by double bouncing the ball off their loop, at least with the setup that I've got there. And probably could take that ball a little bit further away from my body, get the elbow a little bit further out. Wouldn't hurt me either. Probably just force of habit. And you can see the downswing after or during the stroke, just going a little bit down to accentuate the chop on the ball. It's not quite as vicious as a long range chop. I'm not really trying to especially bend the pips. You wouldn't add a lot just from that gentle kind of motion I'm making there, but it gets you in that mindset of trying to sort of like chop down on the ball. So it doesn't hurt. I don't think it adds a lot, but it doesn't affect the stroke. It won't affect your consistency a whole lot. And probably here, because I'm stretching, I'm moving with my forehand, you'll notice again that I've actually got the same kind of movement going as I do on the backhand, a little bit of from the left of the camera towards the right of the camera, which is interesting because on the backhand where I was moving from left to right, you might think on the forehand I might go the other way, but must be just the swing, apparently not. Okay, just watching the ball onto the bat, easily just easing the grip, no big swings, the bat's just staying fairly dead, relaxed, loosish grip on the handle. I'm not trying to loosen it especially, I'm just not trying to hit too hard. And now we'll get into the side view, which will show us a little bit more again. And you can see here, staying balanced, the bat, not really, occasionally I'll pull it back a little bit, but the main focus here is that you can see really at contact the bat isn't going forward. I'm not trying to push through the ball at all. It's going either very dead, very still, or occasionally even a little bit backwards away from the contact point. Just trying to that way soften off my pace off the ball and keep it going low. The actual bat angle, interestingly enough, from this angle you can see is varying sometimes from fairly upright, occasionally even a little bit closed on the ball. I'm certainly not open, and that's producing a ball that, as you can see from this side view, even when I drop it very short with not much pace, very rarely ever bounces twice. But the change of pace is good and very effective, so it's not all about trying to double bounce the ball, because even if you do, then all you're really doing is making maybe an attacking opponent push the ball at you, which gives you a chance to counter-attack for sure, but sometimes it's better to actually have it a bit off the end of the table and get him to try and attack you again and give him that chance to make a mistake. Footwork, again, you can see here I'm playing this from my forehand stance, which I tend to harp on a lot. But with a stroke this small, I really can't see why I'd need to be in a backhand stance to play it. So again, yep, harping on a little bit about that, but I guess you get my point. And now you can see there's a bit of a pulling away of the bat, and there's one where virtually no pulling away is required. And whether that pulling away that I'm doing is actually adding anything to taking off the pace, I really can't say for sure. You can virtually see that I'm pulling away after contact's made. So do I need to really do it? Could I simplify it without it? Quite possibly, and just keep it simple. And now again, just a forehand view. And again, simple, very, very compact stroke. I'm not trying to do anything complicated with this stroke at all. The whole idea is that somebody's basically hit very hard a fast topspin at you, you're stuck up at the table, it's gone to your long pip side, or you've twiddled to your long pip side to help control the ball, and all you're really wanting to do is take that extra pace that he's got, that spin that he's got, and dump all that spin back to him with a different pace to what you'd get if you're using your inverted side. And if you can do that successfully, you're going to give any decent player a lot of trouble. So it's not about trying to be fancy and get a lot of side spin. That's great if you can do it without affecting your consistency. But the number one rule that I find in these situations is, look, try and give it as much of your bat as possible, no fancy movements, so that your chances of making contact when somebody's doing a fast, hard topspin at you, give yourself the best chance of making a good contact. Because you're under pressure, you don't have a lot of time to react. So give yourself a good chance to make contact. Ease off the blade, don't try and grip too hard, just try and relax, which can be difficult when someone's blasting a ball at you, but relax as much as you can, you're not going to get hurt from it. And then just small motion down, or even a dead bat, let the pips do the work, and you really don't need a big swing through, and then recover and look for hopefully his weakish return that you can then come in and take advantage of. So you're letting the pips do the changing of pace, doing the changing of the spin compared to a normal inverted block. Anything you add to that is great, provided you don't mess with your consistency and make too many mistakes, because you're trying to make the opponent make mistakes, not you making mistakes because you're trying to get fancy with side spin blocks or anything else like that. Now from this side view you can see really just take the bat back, hold it in place virtually, let it hit the bat, and sometimes move the bat down a little bit during the stroke, some just like there, So just to finish on this video, the point I'm trying to make with this technique is the technique of chop blocking against a strong topspin from your opponent. You want your technique to be as simple, as uncomplicated as possible, so that it can stand up under heavy pressure when you're up to the table, someone's whipping a very fast topspin from both sides or to your middle, and you don't have a lot of time to react. So having extra flourishes or complications in your stroke make it harder to do well under pressure. So all you can see really I'm doing here is getting the bat there, occasionally moving it a little bit backwards, a tiny bit sideways or down to get a little bit of extra spin, but nothing major, just things that won't really affect my timing point too much, won't affect my contact, and that thus won't affect my consistency too much either. And that's what allows you under pressure to put that ball back and keep your opponent working, whereas trying to do something too fancy can quite often result in a mistake. Now of course, if you've practiced your basics so well that you can do the basics very easily under pressure, then by all means go to more complicated stuff, get more side spin on the ball, get more backspin on the ball, do a bigger stroke. But while you're learning the technique, keep it simple, keep it small, don't do anything too magical. Stick to the basics and just let the long pimples change the pace, change the spin for you, and make things tough for your opponent. Also, if you have got a bat that's reasonably fast, bear in mind that you may find it very, very difficult to drop the ball twice on the table, in which case you may want to not try and put the ball just over the net, but give yourself a little bit more room for error there as well.